there's a quote from The Office where one of the characters goes, I think I could be a good food critic. But he goes, this food is good. This food is bad. And it's like the classic terrible critic that has no insight and no perspective.
Ah, the life of a critic. We have one of America's top movie critics with us today. Do not miss it. This is Dave Wants to Know. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Dave Wants to Know. We're so excited you are here. Be sure you hit that subscribe button. Our guest today, we are so excited to have him here. He went from working in student ministry to becoming a full-time voice in the YouTube film community. He's a Rotten Tomatoes certified critic, host of the enormously popular YouTube channel Sean Chandler Talks About. We've got the one and only Sean Chandler. Hey, buddy.
Hey, love that intro, man. I got excited about myself hearing that. Amazingly popular. I love the sound of that.
Yeah, who's he talking about? Hey, I got to ask you, how many movies a week do you watch?
So the last several years, because I track how many movies I watch, it's been 400 to 500 movies I've watched in the whole year, which if you average that out, it's like
Wow.
1.25 movies per day. But it gets wackier because then you throw in TV shows that I'm also watching, in which like, if you do the math on that, it adds up. But last year I saw 160 new releases. That's a record. That's the most new releases I've ever seen in a year, but 160. And those numbers get a
Crazy.
little bit inflated because I go to a couple film festivals. And so you watch 3 to 5 movies per day for a week straight. And so that's where sometimes those numbers get inflated by like extreme weeks of watching way too many movies. But man, yeah, it's a lot. This year I think will be a little bit more reasonable because I got some other stuff kind of going on in life that's taking me in other places. But you gotta love movies to do what I do.
Yeah, I was going to say, so are you ever able to just sit down and enjoy a movie like the rest of us, or is it always work?
I think a little bit more recently, I've done a better job of being able to go, all right, I'm going to go on Tubi at nighttime and I'm going to put on something stupid. Well, actually, so
Right.
the timing of this was actually kind of almost a little bit sad the way it played out. But one of the ones this year that I did that with was just Chuck Norris movies. Starting in January, I just started
Wow.
watching Chuck Norris movies because I just wanted to watch something silly that I'm not planning on covering. I'm just doing it because it's like, I haven't watched a Chuck Norris movie in 25 years. Let's do this. And so I watched like 5 of his movies earlier this year just for no reason. And then he passed, of course. And so maybe the timing of that was perfect, or some of it was a little bit sad, but I'm trying to do a better job of being able to just watch things. But it's tough when your job, like the thing that you escape from reality is to watch movies. And then that becomes your job. And it's like, I need to watch so many things to do these videos, to cover this, to do that. I literally have lists of movies I have to watch. So at nighttime, it's like, hey, kids, which movie on this list do you want to watch that I need to watch in the next 3 months? I literally have lists of movies I have to watch. So at nighttime, it's like, hey, kids, which movie on this list do you want to watch that I need to watch in the next 3 months? And then the kids go to bed. Hey, wife, which movie do you want to watch that's on the list? It just gets very regimented in a way that is not normal for a way to relate to movies. But there's a side to that that's good because, like right now, I'm watching through all of Steven Spielberg's movies. And so there's ones I wouldn't have watched other than the fact that it's like, I'm going to watch every single one of them. And so you discover things or you just kind of do some deep dives, but it changes your relationship with movies a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine. So what do you do to relax? So when the rest of us are going to movies to relax, what do you do to relax?
I have not found the best solution on that one, especially recently where I've been just pulled in so many directions, but some of it's as simple as whatever video game I'm going to play with my son. It's just that. So a lot of
Very cool.
Fortnite. um,
Yeah.
Fortnite's big in our family. Haven't joined the Minecraft with him. I still don't understand Minecraft, but Fortnite, a ton of that. We do a lot of Switch video game nights, and then I just go to the gym person. So go there, listen to my audiobooks, and unwind there a bit.
So, people might notice there's an age difference between you and me. I grew up with Siskel and Ebert. I
Mhm.
grew up with, my gosh, can I say Gene Shalit? I don't even know if you remember who that is,
No, I mean,
but
I grew up with Siskel and Ebert, but you just got ahead of me on that one.
yeah, he was way back. So you're not like those guys. How did you get your style? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so I mean, like everyone in the 80s and 90s, I watched Siskel and Ebert, anyone that liked movies. And then in the mid 90s, a friend of mine introduced me to Leonard Maltin's movie guide.
Yep.
And so whenever the final VHS version of the Star Wars movies before the special editions and they added all the extra scenes,
Okay.
the final version that they put out, like in 1995, the THX edition, Leonard Maltin interviewed George Lucas on it. And so, and nowadays online interviews and behind the scenes is everywhere. But 1995, it was like, well, he's talking about making Star Wars. And wait, you're telling me you're going to add scenes in a couple and you're writing a prequel? That was like in the era of the internet, you take for granted the idea of information that was like so cool 1995. So I watched those Leonard Maltin interviews on loop because I watched the Star Wars movies on loop too. And right at that time, my friend introduced me to the Leonard Maltin movie guide. And so from like 1995 until 2015, when he stopped printing them, every year I'd get the new guide. That was what my mom, well, actually, it was what my mom got me for Christmas every year. And then I got married and my wife got me that book. And so I literally in boxes have stacks of Leonard Maltin's movie guide,
Well, you
which is
still
cool
have
because
them.
I still have them, and now I'm in the Critics' Choice Association, which he's in, which
How cool.
showed up at the Critics' Choice Awards last year for the first time I got to go there, and he's just walking around and like got to walk up to him and talk with him, like, just so you know, you inspired me to become a critic. And the fact that I'm here and don't want to, peer is the wrong word because I'm not, but in a certain sense, we're both here as voting members of Critics' Choice. This is an incredibly cool moment in my life. And then later that night, I went to the bathroom and he was in the bathroom. So used the urinal with him too. And then this
You're
year,
stalking him.
yeah, like I'm not stalking. I swear I didn't follow you in here. But then this year they gave him an award at the pre-show before the award show. The pre-party was basically dedicated to him, and like I got to be there for that, and that was really cool. So that's kind of my back in the day, some of those things that started me on the path. My first movie review webpage was in 1998. It was a Jackie Chan fan webpage, and then I spent a lot of time on message boards and everything, just sharing my opinions. But a big part of it, I was a youth pastor for basically 10 years. And then I still work with teenagers. I've still been since I stopped being a youth pastor, I still preach at retreats all the time. I did one in February. I did one in January. I did one in October. And then at my church, I teach regularly. And so I kind of came into my presentation style as someone that spent a long time trying to figure out how do you keep the attention of middle school boys. Like how do you have the energy level and just kind of the being entertaining, but trying to have analysis, and then having likewise spent a lot of time just debating people on the internet and like discovering what I'm interested in. And then there's around 2010, the rise of YouTube movie critics started. The first generation of those people that started 5-6 years before I did, that I started watching them, and it was like I watched them and went, I could do that. Like I talked to middle schoolers, I could talk about movies. Now it took me a long time to figure out how do you talk to a camera and have the same energy as you have to a room full of people, because this is awkward versus a room full of people is natural, because talking to technology and talking to people are not the same thing. But that's kind of where it came about, that the merging of a bunch of different things all together.
So I think all of us think, we all have opinions about movies, and I know many people that I talk to and hung out with think I could be a critic. How do you go from, I think I know what I can be a critic, to actually being a critic? I mean, everybody has opinions. What makes your opinion worth listening to, I guess? And I mean that respectfully.
I think at the fundamental end of there's a quote from this TV show called The Office where one of the characters goes, I think I could be a good art critic, or I could be a good food critic. I don't remember which one, it doesn't matter. Right. But he goes, this food is good. This food is bad. And it's like the classic terrible critic that has no insight and no perspective. It's opinion with no depth. And so what's the difference between a good critic, a bad critic? I think it's the ability to take an idea in your head or a feeling. We all have we watch it, we have a feeling, but can you take that and put it into words in a way that is useful for other people and insightful for other people? The best compliment I can get, from my perspective, there's two. First one is, you put my feelings into words. That to me is one of the two best compliments I can get, because that's the goal. is people know what they felt, but they don't fully understand why. Like, what was it about this movie that made me feel the way that I did? The second one is kind of the flip side of that same coin. I completely disagree with you, but you helped me understand a new perspective. That those are
Interesting.
equally valid, like equally like, yes, I did my job. If someone says I had a totally different experience with the film, I loved it, you hated it, I hated it, you loved it, but man, now I'm able to see the movie the way you saw it. That to me is I did my job properly. But like a lot of what I'm interested in is like where ideas come from, how did a movie come about? And even in some of the things I'm trying to do more not celebrity, more director and writer interviews to even
Yeah,
incorporate that into my content as much as possible so that people understand like where did this thing come from? Why is it the way that it is? And I think that's so much more satisfying of an exploration of a film than just opinion. Because anyone can go, that is good, that is bad, but can you put it into words in a way that helps people, gives
right.
insight for them? That's the thing in my mind that it hopefully be entertaining in the process. But that's the goal.
So we all know the Sean Chandler here that's sitting with us, and you've got a billion followers and very successful. But the road getting there from being a student minister to where you are now has been a little rough. And you kind of share some of the challenges that you went through to kind of get where you are now.
Yeah. Yeah. He said, put out my first movie review webpage in 1998. I went full time in 2019. There's 21-year gap,
Wow.
which that's where sometimes people they can look at it. Oh, you went full time in YouTube in just a little over 2 years. Like, true-ish. That's not really the way this worked. Like my starting point was I'd been a full-time communicator for over a decade and I'd been dabbling in this stuff for 20 years. Like there is so much behind that kind of got me to that point in time. But my specific journey of that transition, all along the way, I'd been dabbling in sharing opinions, as I mentioned, on message boards in YouTube. And I had multiple years of false starts. But essentially, the context of the transition is that in youth ministry, when church world, really in any ministry, is if you care about what you're doing and you care about the people around you, then you carry their burdens. And we're not all designed to carry burdens equally. And you don't always know what your emotional reservoir is until you're in the middle of it. And there's many things in the world of being a youth pastor that the job of that I'm fantastic at. Like a communicator, high energy, I can be the wacky idea person. As an actual pastor, what would to shepherd people and do life with them, I'm not really wired to I'm not able to carry the burdens of a lot of people healthily. That's not something that I'm like I've even talked to some people that do counseling. It was like, how could you go in and counsel 5, 6, 7, 8 people in a day and go home? I
Yeah.
can't fathom that
Yeah. Keep it separate.
because keep it separate. Look, and for those of you listening, we see where I'm going with this in just a second with where this led to problems for me. But um, there's a specific time when I was probably 30 years old that a lady came in, kind of walk in, and the lead pastor of the church was gone. So me as the late 20s, early 30s guy sat down with a woman, maybe 60 years old, asking for marriage advice about kind of stuff that was kind of going on. And like, I still sit over 10 years later, maybe 15 years later, like, did I help her? Did I give the right
Mm,
answer? And I'm just kind of, I'm wired in a way of like some people are wired. I know I did the best I could. I gave the best advice I could, and therefore I'm good. I'm wired. Did I do it right? Did I give you the right answer? Did I fix it? And so what I found myself in a situation where our church went through a lot of drama in a very small window of time and a lot of death. And my coping mechanism was the coping mechanism that killed my father, alcohol. My dad drank
wow.
himself to death when I was 20. And I grew up, I didn't know it when I was a kid. I didn't know it at the time, but I grew up in an abusive household. And then I would literally was doing youth ministry in my early 20s, telling hilarious dad stories, and no one was laughing at my hilarious joke because it wasn't a joke. It was a story of abuse, but that was just life to me. And it was like a eye-opening moment of, oh, wait, if any one of my students told me that story, I would be legally obligated to contact the police.
That bad.
I don't want to overstate that, but like there's probably 3 specific incidents that were physical abuse, that he hit me in a way that if a student told me that, I'd have to go to the police. So there's three distinct things that memories, and there might be more that you just don't remember because they weren't as extreme. But like my dad got drunk and he decided that we were bad kids, and spanking us with a wooden spoon wasn't enough. So he grabbed a 2x4 and he hit my sister and I with a 2x4. Now
Oh,
he didn't like it wasn't like full blown swing it as hard. It wasn't that. But my dad hit me with a 2x4
right.
as a punishment. And there was a couple other things where he hit my head against the wall out of rage. And there's a few things that happened that were like, that is physical abuse. You can't do that to an elementary age kid. And I never drank alcohol until I was over 21, but it became kind of it became my coping mechanism for stress. And there's a specific incident where a friend of mine, his brother probably attempted suicide, was in a medically induced coma. He showed up with alcohol and was like, "Hey, this is a crazy day. Want to drink?" And I wouldn't have done it other than like, my buddy's having a terrible day. I'm at my house. This is a safe environment. Okay, let's see what happens. But that created a lie in my mind that was devastating down the line of today was bad enough. It's okay to do something I know is unwise for me. I know with my genetics, my family history, this is a bad idea. And it was justified it. When you're in church world and you carry the burdens of other people, their bad days are your bad days.
Mm.
And so you have a window of time where your church has enough bad things. And all of a sudden, I'll only drink once a month, once a week. Well, today was bad. It was bad again. It's still bad. And we had a window of time where we had multiple teenage suicides in just a few months. And one of them was a kid in my small group, like my group of less than 10 kids.
Right.
And like I was at his parents' house the day after trying to help. And like I said, like I just carry that and I don't process it quickly and it doesn't disappear. I go home and it's still with me. And alcohol was my solution for that. And I was a kind of a full blown alcoholic for over 2 years while being in ministry. And so finally in summer 2016, it all kind of imploded in on me. I was a functioning alcoholic. I was good enough at my job that I could be flashy with things and be like, look
Right.
at everything I did. And they'd be like, we can tell something's not right with you.
Right.
We know that something's wrong. But I could always be like, look at my numbers, look at how good this was, look at this. And I could run cover for what was obviously a very unhealthy version of me. And so then resigned in June of 2016.
Wow.
We're now less than a month away from the 10-year anniversary
Wow.
of this going down. And so I was unemployed. Like my whole resume was work at a church, and
What do you do?
what do you do? And so I was unemployed for several months, and in that window, with nothing to do, I went on date night to go see the new Lady Ghostbusters movie from 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day, I was like, I'll just post a review. That was it. It was a whim.
Wow.
Like I said, that's what I always did. Was I've always reviewed movies. I've always done that stuff. So I returned to that which I loved, which I've always done, which is reviewing movies, and it stuck. Kind of because I was unemployed,
Right.
kind of because I needed a creative outlet. I needed to rebuild, and the job I got was delivering paint. So I went from volunteer leadership, number 2 at the church, speaking on stage in front of hundreds of people, team of volunteers, to you can pick up buckets and pass a drug test, which was mildly ironic. So you've got the job. And so basically I was driving around delivering paint, and I'm a mind person. I'm an idea person. I like to put ideas out there, and I have a
Yeah.
job that is the polar opposite of that. You can pick up buckets of paint without complaining. So I'd get home and I just needed something that was mine. I needed something that I created. And that's where my YouTube channel came from.
So how long from that point of reviewing the ladies' version of Ghostbusters and delivering paint, at what point were you able to let the paint go and turn this into a full-time gig?
It was February 2019. So it's 2.5 years to I've quit. But it was about a year and a half before I started making more money on YouTube than I was on delivering paint. Now, keep in
Wow.
mind, delivering paint is not the most lucrative. This is
Correct.
like not that like I was very underemployed. In the big benefit there was that they had good benefits, not so much even the hourly pay was certainly not great. But it was about a year and a half in, or a little over a year in. I just some version of luck, some version of wise choices. But the whole trick of YouTube is you just have to find where you cut through all the noise. You have to find the thing that you're specifically good at. Even our conversations about how many movies do I watch per year and things like that. Like my tolerance for rewatching movies and watching movies that I don't want to watch is pretty high. And so I'm on YouTube, I'm the ranking guy. I
Yeah.
rank movie franchises. So why do I watch 400, 500 movies per year? It's because I'm rewatching these franchises, and that's work a lot of people don't want to do. I watched that, I didn't like it. Don't want to rewatch it. I'm okay rewatching it. And
Okay.
so I discovered my thing was I'm the ranking guy. So how can I be the best at being the ranking guy? So like 9 months in, I looked at my numbers and I went, if I do a movie review, it gets 100 views. If I do a ranking, it gets 400 views. One of these is more than the other. Let's double down on the one that gets 4 times as many views.
Interesting.
And so then I started doubling down on that and optimizing it. And this was concurrent with the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 3, which was like this, the pop culture event of the last decade was Marvel movies. And I started right at the right time with just the right idea and a true excitement for the properties with this idea of ranking franchises while a monumental franchise is taking off. So the timing was perfect. And
Perfect.
then it was when the movie Black Panther came out, and I just kind of figured out if I rank the movies, but I also rank the characters and the villains all in 1 week. And I had 3 videos just like knock it out of the park. One of them is still uh, 8 years later, it's still my most viewed long form video on my channel with just shy of 1 million views. I should probably double check. Maybe it's at 1 million views right now. But it was like, it was an idea that someone in the comments was like, hey, why don't you rank the villains? I was like, I'll do that. And that same week, I put out one that was for the heroes, and it only got like 600,000 views, which makes it like, my 4th most viewed video. And they were released back to back.
Wow.
And that week of my life changed the week of my life, or changed the trajectory of my life. It changed my career. So I like, it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a random idea. It was like, this was a strategic choice that is repeatable. And so starting in February 2018, I went to my wife and I went, hey, yeah, I messed up bad. Alcohol, I messed up our life. This YouTube thing is working, but I'm not going to mess with your life again. I think I'm going to go full time, but we're doing this on your time frame when you're ready. What's everything you are worried about? And she made a list, insurance, back, like what if it goes bad, everything. And so it took a year because it was February 2018 and I went full time February 2019, just made my way through the list. And then I went, all right, Avengers Endgame comes out in 2 months. That's going to be the biggest movie ever. And let me be, if I'm full-time right before that happens, I'll just springboard off of that. That's what I did. And it worked. Yeah.
So here we are. You mentioned that you're watching Spielberg movies. You're the ranking guy. Does that mean we're going to see a Spielberg ranking? Are you going to rank his movies?
That's the whole idea. Spielberg's my favorite director. And so, working to do a Spielberg ranking, trying to do the deep dive, watching as many Spielberg interviews. There's his retrospective ones and some older ones. Even, I guess you can't see it on the shelf right there, but we wouldn't be able to see it. But like on my shelf back there, I've got a book that I'm kind of reading some of the little tidbits on the behind the scenes and everything. So, but he's got over 30 movies. So is like a multiple month project just to try and watch all the movies for one video. And I don't know how well the video would do. That's the part that someone gets wild, that you spent 30 movies. That's 60 hours watching movies for one video, and you don't know how well it'll perform. And that's the roll the dice on it. But it's also why was I able to cut through as the ranking guy? What was the work I'm willing to do that most people aren't willing to do? Because like there's such a fundamental difference if you do a video like that and you watched War of the Worlds a month ago versus you watched War of the Worlds 15 years ago. Your memories of what you felt about it versus Sean Chandler, the movie critic, rewatched it, wrote notes down. They're not the same thing. And I think that's the flavor in my videos that makes them cut through on these rankings and everything like that. It's the work I'm willing to do that other people aren't doing. And then I'm trying to add to that the work I'm able to do that other people don't have access to, which is interviewing directors. I haven't done it nearly as much as I want to. I'd love to get Spielberg. There's a 0%, or there's a 0.001% chance that'll happen now. There's something. If I was able to do more grind leading up to it, if I wasn't distracted by some stuff and other things I'm doing with my church these days, the chances could have gone up. But maybe someday. But at this particular moment, in the next month, the chances I'm going to interview Steven Spielberg are pretty low. But There was one, a director named Scott Derrickson. I got to interview him for about 20 minutes, and he did one of the Marvel movies, and then he mostly does kind of horror films, but he's actually a Christian, which is pretty cool because like he'll make these R-rated movies that are really dark, and then they'll have like a theme of grace in them. So I'm sitting here with a Hollywood director who's done a Marvel movie, doing some like horror films, and we're sitting there talking about grace, which is really cool. And like I would love to be able to do more of those.
Interesting. Now, you also mentioned the MCU, and that was a big part of you taking off. But I
Mhm.
know fans, my sons who are huge MCU fans, not real happy with the direction it's been going. What do you think they
Mhm.
can do to fix it?
Well, so if I go look backwards and say what should they have done, I think it also is my answer for what they should do.
Okay.
So that's to say that Avengers Endgame was the end of phase 3, and it was the end of the Infinity Saga, which it started with Iron Man, and then they had 22 movies to Endgame, and it told a story. And Endgame was an unprecedented success because it was both, for briefly, the highest grossing movie of all time, but it's the sequel to 21 movies, and they pulled it off. Critics and audiences loved it. And
It was
literally,
great.
literally, this happened yesterday. I'm up here. I actually edit my videos sitting on the floor, right? So I'm sitting on the floor, and I hear the Avengers music, and I'm like, why is the Avengers music playing? And I get a text from my wife, and she's like, "Endgame's awesome." Wednesday, Thursday. What is she talking about? I go downstairs. She watched a video on TikTok that someone was just watched part of Endgame, and she's like, "Well, I have to watch Endgame now." And she's my wife. My wife is not a Marvel nerd, but it's
Right.
just such a satisfying movie that she just decided she had to watch it because she saw a clip from it. Like that's something
Interesting.
special. So what they needed to do is right then say, "We did it. Now we're going to take a year off. We're not going to make anything. We're just going to figure out what's next. We're going to breathe. We're going to relax. And then we're going to start phase 4. But we're not like you have to pause. Like, what? It's even biblical. We're built into it. Just rest one
Yeah.
day. They went,
Right.
10 years of cranking out crazy amounts of stuff. And then instead of taking a break, after they knocked it out of the park, they went, just so you know, we're launching Disney Plus, and we're going to do 3 movies per year plus 5 TV shows. And so instead of taking a break, they quite literally tripled the amount of content they were putting out every year. And so you spread yourself thin, and
Yeah.
just like what I heard someone describe it this way. At first they only put out 1 movie per year, and then they put out 2 movies per year, and then they put out 3 movies per year. And then they switched that up to like 8 things per year. But you think about that, if you're only doing 1 movie per year, you're greenlighting your best idea, and you're going with the best director you can get and your best writer. And if you're doing 3, then by the time they're doing 3 per year, they were doing sequels, and they already had directors that worked in the system. And so then you're like, you'll take a risk on one person, and then we have 2 sequels. But we've got a great writers room of people that know the system and directors that know how to work in the system. And then we move a new one in every year. Moving into
Great.
phase 4, a lot of their key writers, directors left to do other things because they're the biggest names on the directors on the planet. They went off to go do other things. And we're moving into television. So now it's not just our top 3 ideas, it's 8 ideas, and we have to break into a new category. Television and movies are not the same thing. They're different storytelling, different things that work. It's streaming. So it's like we're still figuring it out. Like streaming television is it's only 15 years old. So it's not like main television, which is 70 years old. And they moved into a new format, doubled the amount of content with a whole bunch of new writers, your 8th best writer, your 8th best director. And instead of Kevin Feige just shepherding 3 projects, it's 8. And it's way less time for the new people being brought in. And the whole idea of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that it's a shared universe, that it intertwines. Well, doing that with 2 things per year, well, you only have to sync these 2 things. 3 things, you got to sync 3 things. That's more complicated. But 8 things that are all being written, filmed at the same time, while next year you've got 8 more things? It's too many moving parts. It's too complicated. And so I think they needed to take a break, and just obviously it's just too much. Like just even on the level of normal people, like when it was 3 per year, my mom can watch all of that. and be a part of it. My mom loves going to the movies. That's one of the reasons I'm into the whole of this. When it's that plus 5 seasons of television, it's too much. So it's all of those things. And so what do they need to do? Because they've got Doomsday this year and then Secret Wars next year. And then that's kind of the end of this thing. Take a break. Do what you should have done before. Breathe. I understand it's the Disney, like your corporation, your Disney, and new movies is the fuel that sells toys and T-shirts and rises at Disney World. But hit movies sell more toys than flops, and flops just lose you money. No one bought their Captain Marvel toys after the Marvels because nobody went to go see the movie and nobody liked it. As opposed to everyone on the planet saw Avengers Endgame and got excited and bought a T-shirt or whatever. So pause and come up with a good plan. And also, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Endgame was an event, and you turned the MCU from events into weekly episodes. It's no longer an event if you get it every week. So you just need to have less of it, and you need to have better planned out.
Seems like there used to be actors that used to do that, that you would have an actor who was hot and he would have 3 or 4 really good movies, and then he'd step back, or she would take a break for 3 or 4 years because they didn't want people to get tired of him, or maybe they just want to have some personal time. But it had that same kind of effect of, oh, look, so-and-so's back. I haven't seen them for a while. It's interesting.
Well, even the world's last true movie star, Tom Cruise, how many movies has Tom Cruise put out in the last 10 years? Not very many. And so when he put, it's like the new Tom Cruise movie, and he throws everything into it. Literally, he spends a year learning how to drive a motorcycle off of a cliff. Like that level of like, I'm only going to do so many, but when I do one, it's going to, I mean, if you go back, like in the last 8 years, I think he's done 3 Mission Impossible movies and Top Gun. So all of them were events that had something that truly cut through. In particular, of course, Top Gun Maverick, which was this just huge deal, which once again, he spent forever to make it. He developed new technology to be able to film it the way that he wanted. And like, he trained the actors on how to like because if you're in a jet, you don't have the makeup crew. You don't have a cinematographer in your jet with you. So he had to train every single one of those actors that worked with him to adjust their camera to look good. And they'd have to do their own makeup in a jet that's flying so that you get these shots. But that's Tom Cruise. He's not the director, but he's he's the guy that's like, this has to be incredible. I took 37 years to make this thing. Like, people want it to be awesome. And he actually did it, but he didn't rush it out. He didn't crank out 4 movies per year. He like dedicated years of his life to craft this movie to be the best it could be. And that's just so different.
Yeah, arguably better than the original.
It's someone that a core memory for me. One of the first movies I remember seeing is Top Gun, and watching it in my living room, and my parents be like, "Get out of here!" during the take my breath away kissing scene. What is this? Why do I have to leave? Kick me out of the room. Like that's one of my earliest memories. Like my early memories of watching movies is Top Gun and like Star Trek 4. And like we had the record, the soundtrack, and because I was young enough at the time, I thought that Tom Cruise sang all the songs on it, and Take My Breath Away was sung by the lady, and I guess I just didn't know. Like, core memories. And I think Top Gun Maverick is obviously a better movie. As someone that adores the original one, but it was just like a perfect example of a craftsman spending quite literally over 30 years to figure out, how do I top the movie that made me Tom Cruise? And I think he figured it out.
Absolutely.
Also, as a little bit of bias on it, the guy that plays Hangman in it, Glenn Powell, went to the same high school that I went to. So maybe I have a little bit of bias there too, rooting for the hometown hero.
And there's a striking resemblance of you guys too, as well.
Yes, I'll take it.
Something that bugs me so much, and I know a lot of other people that look at Rotten Tomatoes, and it happened to us just recently, is the critics hate the movie and the public loves the movie. The movie I'm talking about is Michael.
Yeah.
We went with, and I was, wouldn't consider myself a huge Michael Jackson fan, but we went and saw it and we're like, hey, that was a pretty good movie. And it's getting like 37% from the critics. What's the disconnect between the public and the critics?
Well, There's a few things that kinda go on with some of these, and there's a lot of times individual stories with them. I think a fundamental thing you have to keep in mind is, going back to what I said at the beginning of this. I watched 160 new movies last year.
Mhm.
This year, I've already watched, something like over 50 new movies this year, something like that. I don't know, 40, 50. That's just fundamentally different relationship with what you go see. You go see a movie because you wanna go see that movie. Michael Jackson fans rushed out to go see Michael Jackson because they were excited to go see it. Critics went to go see it because it's the new movie,
Right.
regardless of whether they like him or not, whether they like the genre or not, anything like that. So I think it's in particular with like fan favorite type of projects. This happened a month ago too with Super Mario Galaxy. Had a
Yes.
pretty low Rotten Tomatoes score, but audiences adored it. They designed a movie for fans. Michael was designed for Michael Jackson fans. Just critics are going in with just a different perspective. You're not walking in necessarily wearing your Nintendo shirt the way that the audience is. I think one of the specific ones with Michael Jackson is the people that bought a ticket. They wanted to go see a movie that reminded them of the excitement of Michael Jackson in the 80s. And they made a movie that turns Michael Jackson into an underdog, which is kind of crazy because the most talented singer of a generation who had sold 1 million records by the time he was 10 and was friends with Diana Ross when he was 9 years old on the Ed
Right.
Sullivan Show in 1969 when he's 11. Michael Jackson's the furthest thing from an underdog in those regards, but
Mhm.
you can be the greatest talent on the planet and still face opposition and conflict, which was with his dad, who was kind of a monster. Well, was a monster. And so they found that. And so you watch it and it just makes you feel good. And there's so many great songs in there and there's enough deep cuts that you're like, yeah, and he's a weird enough guy, but it handled his weirdness in a way that was so charming. Like the
Right.
sequence in it where he introduces his family to Bubbles. It's such a
Yes.
perfect example of how weird of a guy he was, but it was so charming. And there's scenes
Yeah.
in the I keep when people ask me, should I go watch the movie? Like, there's scenes in the movie where he fires his dad and then a giraffe walks by in the background or something like
Yes.
that. It's so weird, but in like such a it puts a smile on your face kind of way.
Hey, we talk a lot about the blockbusters, and you do all the rankings, the best action movies, the best this, that, the best that. Is there a movie floating around right now that hasn't gotten a lot of attention that you think probably should, that doesn't necessarily make your rankings, but is a pretty cool movie that people should see? For me, and this was a number of years ago, and it was nominated for an Academy Award, but Holdovers got
Oh
nobody
yeah, yeah,
knows
yeah.
that movie, and I love that movie, and that's kinda
Mhm.
one of, like I said, it was nominated, but it didn't get much attention.
Yeah.
I just
I mean that's a great example of a movie where you watch it and you go, yeah, they just don't make movies like that anymore.
yeah,
And it's the kind of movie that you watch it and you go, if this had come out in 1998, it would have been a big hit movie. But for whatever reason, the way that we watch movies, the way that they're marketed, a film like that just kind of just gets looked over, unfortunately. I don't know, like one from, I actually was just talking about this movie with the guy that I lead a small group of Bible study at my church of high schoolers. And the guy that I
uh-huh.
was leading with, we were talking about this movie that came out a year and a half ago called The Iron Claw. And
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
story about this Texas wrestling family that essentially the real life story of their family is so tragic and so sad. When they made the movie, they had to leave out one of the brothers to make the movie less sad, to make it more palatable because the movie is
Wow.
so tragic. And it's all like you're watching it and it's just so unbelievably good. But it's sad. It's a gut punch of a movie. The last scene in it, like where the like I don't want to say too much, but like
Yeah.
the star of it, played by Zac Efron, kind of sits down and is reflecting on everything that's happening with his children. One of the best final scenes, most memorable final scenes I've ever seen in a movie, and one of the best back-to-back lines of I can't even say the line out
Yeah.
loud without I'd get a little emotional just saying what he says and then what his son says back because it's just so potent. And the movie did okay because it didn't cost a ton. But once again, it's the kind of movie that back in the day, this would have done so much better and gotten so much more buzz.
That's funny. Every weekend, our family argues over what movie we're gonna watch, and that one's been debated for the last
Mhm,
couple of weeks. I think I'm
mhm,
gonna move that to the
mhm.
top of our queue.
That's
At
now
Blockbuster's
you
coming.
just know it is so heavy. And like I
Okay.
said, like you'll watch it and it's like the most depressing slash awesome, great movie like seen
Oof,
forever. And then you look it up and there was another brother just as tragic as everything in that movie.
interesting. Hey, we're talking about Spielberg, and I know he's got a huge
Mhm,
blockbuster coming out pretty
mhm.
soon. What do you see for the summer blockbusters? What do you think is going to be the big one? Is it going to be Spielberg? Is it going to be something else?
So his movie Disclosure Day comes out at the beginning of or in the middle of June. I think it'll do really good because I think this movie came out just a little bit called Project Hail Mary.
Yes.
And it's like it felt like an old school blockbuster. Like that's the movie
Yes.
that when people talk to me, they're like, "Oh, I love that movie." Like every grown up, I haven't run into anyone that saw it and didn't
Yeah,
like it.
we loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the one that people are excited about. And I think Disclosure Day has the potential to be that same sort of flavor of like, they don't make them like that anymore, one
Right.
of those movies, but I don't know if it'll be the biggest movie. I think it'll
Right.
do really well. In June or July, you have a new Spider-Man movie coming out. And so I
Those always
think
do well.
a new Spider-Man movie, the last one they did made almost $2 billion and they didn't rush out a new one. They went, all right, that was awesome. Let's take our time to like do it right. So I got a lot of hope for that one. I don't think this movie will be good, but I'm sure it'll make $1 billion. Minions and Monsters from Illumination, from the
Yeah.
Despicable Me. I,
Yeah.
I I'm so done with these movies.
Right.
But also I have kids. It's so like, oh, I
So
can't
you'll
wait to
be
see
seeing it.
Minions.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
seeing it. I'll be there but so I'm sure it'll make $1 billion, but that one will do great. There's Christopher Nolan, who his last movie was Oppenheimer. It's
Hmm.
it's a 3-hour movie about science and Senate hearings, and it was that close to hitting $1 billion. He won Best Director, Best Picture, and what did he want to do as his follow-up? He's adapting Homer's The Odyssey. Like a director at the top of his game with all the clout in the world. He's doing the second biggest epic of all time behind only the Bible. That's what he's adapting. So there's the online discourse around it is kind of pretty weird. There's people like not liking the trailers for it because of the American accents and some of the slang and some of this. It's not historically accurate. This isn't what they were. Like there also weren't one-eyed 15-foot monsters. Also, like
There
it's
weren't.
mythology. It's a movie, but there's some weird discourse. But I think that that one has potential to make a big, gigantic splash. But we got our first Star Wars movie coming out. The first one in 7 years comes out in 2 weeks. I don't think it'll do great because it's Star Wars is just. I think too many people are just
Saturated.
burned out on Star Wars. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
saturated, burned out, and they did years and years of television. Kind of like what I said about Endgame, where
Yeah.
Star Wars, George Lucas Star Wars, it was an event. I mean, one of the biggest events of my cinematic events of my lifetime was the release of The Phantom Menace when I was in high school because I grew up on Star Wars, but I'd never been able to see a new one. Like, we're doing one. So it's a huge event. And even though people weren't crazy about the prequels, every one of them was a huge event. But if you do television shows for 7 years straight, you turn events into episodes. And then even this movie, it's an adaptation of a TV show. And so I don't know how well it'll do. I hope I have a good time with it, but I'm nervous. So we got some big ones coming out this year. There's a He-Man movie coming out that me as someone that grew up as a little kid in the 80s, that one's I'm getting the giddy little kid smile. It's bringing the little kid out of me. I don't know if it'll be good, but I know it's making me excited. And then
Right.
the last one, there's a Toy Story 5 and the Disney animated sequels, all of those make $1 billion. They feel a little bit creatively bankrupt. Just do, Toy Story 5. We're doing a live action remake of Moana. But whenever they do that stuff, it hits $1 billion. So
Yeah.
I'm not super excited for them, but I'm pretty sure they'll do well and they'll be the big gigantic movies.
Okay, Sean Chandler, Rotten Tomatoes certified critic. I've got some rapid fire questions for you.
All right.
All right. What is the one movie you've seen the most times in your life?
I think it's Jean-Claude Van Damme's Bloodsport. I think it
That's
was
a classic.
is the very first rated R movie I ever saw. And as I told you later on, my first movie page was the Jackie Chan fan webpage. I just love
Right.
martial arts movies. Even right now, I'm wearing a Mortal Kombat shirt. Mortal
Yeah.
Kombat, the video game, was heavily inspired by Bloodsport. One of the star character in this is Johnny Cage, JC, Jean-Claude. He's dressed like Van Damme in Bloodsport. I'm not very good at rapid fire answers.
Okay, but Bloodsport's that one. I think I know the answer to this one. Which actor or director would you like to sit down for an hour interview with?
I'm very much a director person, more so than actors. I'll list off three directors. You said one, but I'm going to give you three. Spielberg, we already talked about, who's my favorite director of all time. Christopher Nolan, who we talked about, my favorite current director. And then James Cameron, my other favorite director of all time. And for an actors, it would be Stallone or Schwarzenegger, because they're just such fascinating people with the
All,
careers that they had and everything that they did.
all big names. Physical media or digital?
Physical media. I don't know if this will be a video, but if you can
I
see
figured.
this, you can see behind me my wall of Blu-rays. And some of that just goes back to, I mean, I remember the DVD market from 20 years ago, and I just love a great special feature and having a
Yep.
disc, and I love all of that.
What is your guilty pleasure movie? You know it's not good, but you just love watching it.
Oh, it somewhat kind of goes back to my first answer of Bloodsport, but I just love like old Van Damme movies, old martial arts movies, and just that old school action with actual explosions and fight choreography, not the CG. I mean, of course, I love the CGI stuff too, but when
Right.
you're talking about the guilty pleasure, like what do I throw on at nighttime when it's just me and it's not for covering stuff, it's not for the job. Man, I'm watching ridiculous American Ninja 2. We talked about earlier watching Chuck Norris movies. Like, doesn't care if they're good, but they're old school action. I just love that stuff.
And you, Sean Chandler, can you end the debate? Probably the biggest debate in the movie world. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
I think Die Hard is very obviously a Christmas movie. It is about someone going to a Christmas party. It is thematically about a man trying to get back to with his family on Christmas while Christmas music is playing all throughout the entire movie. So thematically it's Christmas, the setting is Christmas, it's a Christmas party, it's Christmas Eve, like top to bottom. Any argument that it is not a Christmas movie is genre bias.
All right, there it is from Sean Chandler. It is, in fact, a Christmas movie. Hey, you talk a lot about what you want to do in 5 years, and you've hit a bunch of milestones. Where do you see yourself and the channel, say, in 2030?
That's a lot of what I've been trying to figure out is when the goal when you're starting out is just like, well, can I get some traction? And I got traction. It's like, oh, the goal is to go full time. I went full time. And then the next year's COVID. So it's like, no, I just want this thing to work. I want to survive COVID. Like that I touched on this a little bit, but so like what I'm excited about on some of this is just trying to um kind of maybe get into the journalist side of things in regards to like more interviews and just kind of digging in deep and like helping people understand where like where ideas come from. Like we talked about that Steven Spielberg interview, the Christopher Nolan interview, James Cameron interview. Like those would be your dream interviews to sit down and be able to like ask the questions to do that ranking or whatever that's informed through discussion with them of where these films came from. That's really interesting to me, like a lot of what I'm trying to do more of. And like I heard the phrase, it was actually at a training from church world training about, teaching in church world about you always want to be upstream when you're preaching or teaching, not just teaching exactly what you know, but be upstream. Like there's so much more that you know that if someone asks a question, you can just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper on.
Yeah.
So how can I keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, having more and more insights of like, here's opinion, here's why, here's the backstory of where this film came from, why it came about, but just having a real depth of knowledge in my coverage that it's not just you have opinion, but you leave it really being informed about where movies come from and how they're made and thinking about story, like you feel like you had a class on storytelling just because you watched a movie review. That's the stuff that's kind of interesting, exciting to me.
Yeah. I've seen, I don't know if you're familiar with Rick Beato. He's a music.
I don't know if you can see this. If you can, like, he's literally on my TV right now.
Oh, is he?
Like, can you see my screen? He's literally on my TV right. I was watching. Yeah, that's him. That's the blue right there. It's his shirt. That's literally what I was watching before I started.
Well, yeah. So, Rick Beato started out as kind of a guy that was talking about how to play certain instruments and why songs are good. And now he's kind of moved over to actually interviewing the people that made the music. And I think that would be great. It sounds like that's kind of the way you're looking to go as well. And I think that would be awesome. And people would really dig that.
Yeah. I've had a little bit like I've done quite a few interviews now, and in the world of interviews, getting an interview for certain things isn't terribly difficult, but it's normally a press junket, and so there's like constraints on it. You get 6 minutes, something like that. And I've gotten a few that were really good interviews. Like interviewed, are you familiar with the TV show The Chosen? So the creator's Dallas Jenkins, and he did a movie, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, about a year and a half ago, based on the book of the same name. So I got to interview him for that for 20, 25 minutes. And like I spent a bunch of time, like my sister loved the book and had watched the previous adaptation. And it's like talk with her and talk with my wife and just spent a long time like writing questions and like really analyzing the film and developing questions about that. And like that interview was just like felt like we really discovered something there. Like this is it. This is if this is something I could do every week, that would be
Right.
incredible. That would be awesome. Now, every movie doesn't necessarily have the right things, and there were certain things about the movie that we tapped into of like there's an otherliness to the movie that it's like timeless. It doesn't feel set in any specific time. It's just like that he made the movie a specific way and we captured that and then we asked him about it and he articulated it really well. Not every movie has those qualities to it. But like that's the one I go to and I go, that was really cool. That was awesome.
Any advice for moviegoers out there? I don't know how you give advice, but how to choose movies, how to read criticisms of movies.
I mean, the key one is don't use Rotten Tomato. Understand what Rotten Tomatoes is. It's an aggregator. And so all it's doing is telling you a percentage of critics that recommend a movie. That's a tool. It's useful, but it's limited. And like, so I only go see a movie if it's over 70%. Like, well, then you'll miss out on some awesome things because critics have like with Michael, there's ways in which they're just like off
Yeah.
from regular people. So I think the key thing is discovering 3, 4 people that you find useful. You don't even have to agree with them, but find people that are useful that their taste in movies, you know how to interpret it right. And they know how to discuss whether they like or dislike something in a manner that helps you know if it's right for you. Because there's a lot of critics that they're like, this was awful. No one should go see this movie. But they're wrong. There's people that love that movie. Just
Right.
because I don't like a movie doesn't mean someone else won't. And so I think like, and there's reasons that people that do that stuff are successful because it's entertaining and people like the competence. But I don't know that I don't think that's as helpful as someone that has a nuanced opinion that is able to say, I didn't like it for this, 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 and this, but I think these people will like it for this, this, and this. And find people, several of them, different opinions that do that in a way that is really helpful for you. And I think some of it is also just try to dig a little bit deeper. Right now, we're not very good at finding original movies, and because we're not very good at it, Hollywood doesn't make as many of them. And so it's a you know
Hmm.
it's a cycle that repeats itself. We don't go
Right.
see them, so they don't make them, so there's fewer of them. So the better job that is we can do as individuals to like do a little bit of homework and giving the consumer the requirement of doing homework to find good things is it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be difficult to find original things, but dig a little bit deeper, try and find some of those smaller things or mid-budget things and support them so that we get more and bigger budget original stories and not just Toy Story 5, Fast and the Furious 17, the 40th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And my table right here in front of me is filled with big franchise nerd things. Like I'm surrounded entirely by big, and I'm not in any way anti-franchise, but I'm just super pro original movies and we're losing them. Star Wars in 1977 was an original movie. When are we going to get the next new Star Wars? Harry Potter was an original idea in the 90s. And I want more of those. I want the ecosystem to be able to be open for us to get original stories again. And that requires us as individuals choosing not to give our money only to the biggest movies with the biggest marketing budget that's the 17th movie in a franchise or a live action remake of Moana or whatever, but choosing to take a risk on something smaller that we're not so sure about. The Iron Claw, the holdovers, things like that.
I'll tell you what, this has been a fascinating talk with you and getting an insight into what a critic does and how you do the job. And I'm excited to see some of the things that you're going to kind of expand into in the coming months and years. We find you, Sean Chandler, at Sean Chandler Talks About Where else can we find you?
Yeah, I'm all over social media. If you look up Sean Chandler, you'll either find an NFL player or a guy
Yeah.
that looks like me talking about movies. It's the guy that looks like me talking about movies, but I'm all over Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. My main one is YouTube. I'm doing a ton on Letterboxd. Actually, if you want the interesting stuff right now, it's
Yeah.
Letterboxd because every single movie that I've watched this year, I've written a review of it on Letterboxd. And so
Okay.
that's like all those Chuck Norris movies I referenced. I wrote reviews for them. I watched two different versions of Jean-Claude Van Damme's movie called Cyborg. They released like a very rare director's cut of it called Slinger. And so I reviewed both of them with the backstory of the changes that were made. And so the most interesting stuff I'm doing this year is actually on Letterboxd.
Letterbox. Okay. Well, check out Letterbox and, of course, the YouTube and all the other sites. Just, yeah, you're not the football player, you're the movie critic. Sean Chandler, thanks so much for
Mhm.
spending a time with us and sharing us all your insight and your story.
Oh, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
And again, thanks so much to Sean Chandler for joining us. You can find him on YouTube at Sean Chandler Talks About. He's also got a lot of other social media platforms. We'll put those in the description. As always, we thank you for joining us. We ask you to subscribe and like the episode. It really helps us out a lot. And we will see you next time on Dave Wants to Know.